Want to drive faster? Listen in as Kinch Rendell, an SCCA National Trophy winner and multi-time Pro Solo champion himself, interviews the best autocrossers in the land. He talks fast and drives even faster. And now here's your host, Kinch Rendell.
This week's podcast features Rocky Entriken. He is a 100%er who has made it to every single Solo Nationals. That's 43 as of 2015. He was awarded the Solo Cup, the sport's highest award, in 1981. He's your 1986 D Prepared Solo 1 national champion. He's on the old farts list, which means he's raced over half of his life, and he will commit time to helping newbies at autocross each and every year. So listen up. He's got lots of information. Oh, by the way, he's also the keeper of Solo Stats. That's where he keeps records from every single nationals, from everyone that attended. He also totals things like championships, trophies, family trophy or family championships, who has the most wins consecutively, all kinds of stats. He sells that. So check out the show notes if you'd like to purchase that, or drop me a note and let me know. But listen up, and you can learn lots about the history. And toward the end, I actually included about 10 minutes that we recorded before I actually knew that we were recording. He was a trooper and hung in there with me as I tried to get the audio recording for both of us. So there's a bit there about the Spitfire toward the end of the show. Hope you enjoy it.
You're a 100%er. You've made every single Nationals. Take us back to some of those first Nationals. What was it like compared to 2015?
Well, I had a thought today, in fact, that I was talking to my wife about it. What would you think today if you went to a national championship event and the paddock was gravel?
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, we
the first two nationals we did, the first one at Mid-America Raceway, west of St. Louis, and the second one at Lake Geneva Speedway in Wisconsin, our paddocks were gravel at both of them. No, gravel, dirt. Lake Geneva, we actually paddocked in the spectator parking area. You know, spectator cars, they don't care about gravel, but our guys are out there on our slicks and stuff like that. Of course, back then, our slicks weren't as slick as they are now. No, they were still pretty hard tires, so it didn't bother us all that much. What was actually the worst part about Lake Geneva was when you got to the end of the course, the exit road back to the paddock was dirt. And so when you arrived in the paddock, your tires were covered with this dirt. But, you know, back then you didn't have people jacking up the car and rubbing rocks off the tires like they do today.
Yeah.
But, no, you just did. You went to the paddock, you parked, and you went out for your next run. No big deal. One thing, you know, I was the chairman for the third Nationals, which is here in Salina.
Okay.
And after being to the first two, I claim to have invented a few things that are now just standard practice. And the first of which was, I told the Solo Board I wanted an on-site inspection of our courses and approval before the event happens. Because at both the first two events, the Solo Board showed up, looked at the course, didn't like it, and spent Saturday morning changing it.
How many people were at the first couple Nationals?
Let me get my book out, and I can tell you for sure. No, not that many, but we lost half a day at Wentzville and about 2 hours at Lake Geneva while they rebuilt the courses. Lake Geneva, they only had to rebuild a portion of it. Lake Wentzville, they changed the whole damn thing.
Was it like too fast, too slow, too many cones?
What the people who set up the event, Wentzville, the long course was going out on the Mid-America Raceway track. You drove backwards around the track to turn 7, and then you ran the track to turn 1. And what they did was they had put chicanes on the straightaways and left the corners open to let you take your own line through the corners. Oh. Solo Board said, we absolutely don't like that, and the course ended up being chicanes in the corners, and the straightaways were left open. Most of them anyway. So that took them a while to set up. And like I say, we set up the second one. They changed the first part of the course because, and I got to admit, I kind of agree with them. It came too close to this big concrete wall. I mean, this was a wall that was about 20 feet high, you know. So, and as it happened, it rained, and we did get a couple cars that still got to the wall, even though we had pulled the course away from it. So I can't really blame them for that. But as I said, I was chairman for the third event. I didn't want that to happen to mine. And so I had to talk them into setting up the course earlier in the year and coming out and inspecting it. And they were afraid that once we set up the course, people would come and test run it and stuff like that. You know, and I just said, hey, look, I'm here in Salina, Kansas. There's about one other SCCA member here in this town at that time, and he's a road racer. He could give a crap about this stuff. And I'll just promise you that I won't go test it. And if you'll believe me in that, we'll be good. And we did. We came out and we set up the courses in May for a nationals that ran in October. And we painted the boxes around the pylons once we got it all approved. And no, it did not change the morning of the event. And ever since then, a pre-event course setup and inspection has been part of the process. Yeah. But
did you have somebody drive your course back in the day, or did you just set it up?
What we had mine, we didn't have him drive the course at full tilt. We got a great big car, big Lincoln Continental or something like that, and we had him drive through the course at walking speed so we could make sure that the corners were all makeable.
Nice.
This ignores the fact that the north course was so tight it was painful. And I want to say, I set up the south course, guys. Don't blame me, but it was. And if we'd driven it at speed, we might have discovered that.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that good a course, but at least it ran the way it was set up. And nobody had to come and change it Saturday morning before we did the event.
Oh, and tell us, when did the 2-inch box around the cones, what was the rule before that?
The rule before that was what was commonly called the wobble rule. If you went by a cone and it wobbled, you bought it. And most of the time, you just tick the thing, you just walk around a little bit, and be a little cockeyed in the box. If you knocked the thing into the next county, it was obvious as heck. But the rule was that if the corner saw the cone wobble, it was yours. And people would argue, hey, this is that was just my exhaust, or that was just the wind. And, I can say that I've been at events where the wind would blow the course over before without a car even being close to it.
Oh, exactly. Yep. We've seen that out here for sure.
Sure. So, but back then, the wobble rule was it. When Bill Johnson set up Pro Solo, he tried to beat that by stuffing tennis balls in the top of the cones, saying if you knock the just laying on top of the cone, saying if you knock the tennis ball off, you bought the cone. Well, the problem is they knocked the tennis ball off and the ball bounced halfway into the next county, and they spent more time chasing the damn tennis balls than they did chasing the cones.
So tennis ball needed a piece of string in it to something inside the cone.
Even so. But when I came up with the third one, like I say, we had the inspection, and then we marked the course with paint so it would still be there in October, and we used these 2-inch paint rollers. And I looked at that a little after and says, you know what? We've got a really good margin around that thing, not just a chalk line. So I'm going to give everybody a 2-inch fudge factor. If your cone is still completely within the outside edge of that box, no penalty, whether you ticked it or not. All we're going to do is look at the cone after you've gone by, and if it's completely within that outside edge, so you can move it 2 inches.
Okay.
That was the rule for my 75 Nationals. Solo board, I had argued with them again a little bit about how to enforce the cone rule, but once they got there and they saw it work, they said, yeah, we like that. And they put it in the rule book. But I always said they put it in the rule book wrong. Doesn't matter because it still works. What they put in the rule book was if the cone is completely outside the box, it counts. But if any portion is within, the rule we're used to today, It doesn't count. So you can knock that. My 2-inch fudge factor became a 14-inch fudge factor. But you know what? It works. And It's been working for 40 years now. So I don't really have a complaint about it. I just kind of giggled at they got it wrong from the way I set it up in the first place.
So if any parts inside the paint or inside the non-painted box on the inside?
Any part that's inside the painted edge.
Yep, so it's the cone marking plus the 2 inches. Okay.
Exactly.
Some people are probably listening that have not fully understood the rules, especially, I mean, I didn't know what the rule was supposed to be or what it was before this. Hearing about tennis balls bouncing around is kind of hilarious.
They changed it recently, and more for the regional level thing, where they said because it used to be that the rule book actually said there had to be a 2-inch box around the cone. And they changed it recently, so there has to be a box around the cone. They aren't requiring it be out 2 inches, because a lot of regions, they don't mess with 2 inches. They just go and mark two lines beside the cones and they call it good.
Exactly.
You go to Nationals, you're still going to find that 2-inch box because they painted them.
Good point. Yep.
But yeah, if it's outside the line of the box, whether you wrote it with paint, chalk, or whatever, it's a penalty. If any piece of it is inside, it's not. And I know here in Salina we even emphasize that to another extent. We say if there is a cone inside the box, it's no penalty, because about once a year or so, or twice a year, you'll get the freak situation where some guy will knock over the stand-up cone and hit the pointed cone too, and the pointed cone ends up being the one that's standing up inside the box. Or the guy drags a cone down to the next row of cones and hits another one and leaves his drag cone behind, and it's in the box. It happens rarely, but it happens.
Yeah, if you can pull that off, you don't want to have somebody saying he said, she said, which cone was there?
Yeah, which cone was that in the box? You say, if there is a cone in the box, that is all you need to know.
and where a cone is supposed to be.
Yeah, it just eliminates all the arguments. Then all you have is whether I hit the cone or not, and that one will be there forever. He's credited with a cone. I never hit no cone. No, you always got that argument. But the argument of whether the cone is in the box or not basically has been a moot point since 1975.
That is nice. So which of the cars, thinking back outside of your car, have you had the most fun driving or the most challenging to drive? Like the Taurus.
Which of you say not my car?
Yeah, not your car.
Oh, boy.
Go with there first.
Most challenging. Oh, God. I've jumped in so many over the years, it's kind of hard to say. I know the first time I got into a front-wheel drive, I forget even what it was, but I come charging into the corners, and the thing you just wanted to keep going straight, and it took me a while to figure out how to drive a front-wheel drive, and finally someone, pointed out to me that if you're spinning your rear-wheel drive car, you lift, but if you're spinning your front-wheel drive car, you stomp it.
Yep.
And so, okay, slow down going in, slow down more, and then stand on it coming out. Oh, that's how this works.
Especially if you have limited slip and any kind of power. It's amazing how it can just pull you back in.
Yeah. That's one thing about the Spitfire. I ran with limited slip for so many years. And I'd break an axle about once a year of that thing. It was a little sloppy, but I loved the way it went around corners. And finally, I had Randy Herrick working on the rear end of my car one year, and he took the limit slip had just about eaten up. I repaired it so many times. He took that thing out, said, "This thing is just total junk right now," and he just welded up a rear end and stuck that back in there. And he also drilled a couple holes in the frame so the rear end would mount higher, which lowers the car. Oh, that was cool. And what I found out was that welded up rear end went around the course just beautifully. The hardest thing about a welded rear end was pushing it in the paddock when you had to turn it.
Yeah.
And as long as you're driving it, no problem. So I've loved my welded rear ends ever since.
That's interesting because in FSP, I know that the car that's won several times, although it hasn't been driven the last year or two, they put a limited slip in there only to take it back out because it's breaking the glebos in the 2002 BMW. Back to the welded disc.
Well, my limited slip, I could sit there and, hold one wheel and rotate the other, and I'd move it, an inch or so, which I figured, okay, that's every time you stand on it, you hammer that end of your gears, and every time you jump on the brakes or get off it, you hammer the other side of the gears. With the welded rear end, the thing meshes so beautifully that you just don't get that play in the rear wheels anymore. That's also when I went to the big axle on the Spitfire. Has an outer axle and an inner axle, and during all this limited slip period, I had Spitfire inner axles, which are little small things. And like I say, I'd snap one about once a year, and I got to the point where I could change it out in an hour. If I could get the stub that was broken off inside the diff out, I could do it in an hour. If I had to go through and knock it out from the other side, it'd take 2 hours because that meant taking both axles off.
Yeah.
But I did it once in Chicago at the Chicago Nationals, the 174. I did that essentially between runs. Broke it between runs, jumped under there, pulled it out, put it back in, and made my next run.
So of all the cars you know of out there, if you could drive any of them, which ones would you be interested in getting in?
Oh, all the cars I know out there. If I were to wish, I'd love to get in my own Spitfire, but have the grenade motor in there that I knew wouldn't last much more than about 20 runs. Because I do. I love driving that thing. I have for years, but I've always given up a little bit on the performance. I thought, and that was mostly lack of cubic dollars more than anything else. Although over the years, like I say, I got a pretty good engine in it now. Wayne Snyder and Dwayne Bailey have built me some 13-to-1 engines that are nice. For years, I had a 10.5-to-1 engine.
Wow.
They also built me. They've got me using a GT6 gearbox now, which is much better than the Spitfire box was. It's just a bit longer. My problem with the Spitfire is that the second gear, the third gear overlap there almost was no overlap. Which meant you were constantly stirring the gears.
Yeah.
But in the GT6, you've got a nice overlap of the two, so the high end of second gear will go a little bit farther, and the low end of third gear will get on it a little bit earlier. So I like that GT6 setup. Nice, but a lot of it is I think I just don't have enough cubic dollars in the car. But if I was to drive something else, something that was not mine, I really have no great desire to drive, big high horsepower cars. I've never been about going fast.
Yeah.
For me, corners is it. I like to be able to do that corner better than you can. But going down the straight fashion you can doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah. So that makes me wonder, did you ever track much, get out to the track?
Oh, yeah. I've a road raced Spitfire also. I took it to the runoffs in 2011, and that was at Road America. And for that one, my friend Dwayne Bailey came down and crewed for me and brought me a 389 rear end. I've got a 455 in the car normally, which is what you want for autocross, and for the tracks in the Midwest, the 455 gets around them just fine. But the 389 is what I wanted for Road America, because that is such a long track, and there's only 14 corners on the thing for 4 miles. COTA has 20 corners. It's only 3 1/4 miles. So we put his 389 in the car. We actually didn't put it in until after I'd done my first practice session on Monday morning, because we were the first group out. We didn't have time to change it. So I went out for that first practice session with a 455 in the Spitfire. And I don't know, are you familiar with Road America at all?
No.
Well, all your listeners might not be. So Road America, you come out of turn 14 to the main front straight, which is about a 3/4 mile long run. But it's a little bit of flat, and it's a nice big hill to climb up, and then it flattens out and it crests right underneath the starter stand. So I go out from my first session with the 455 in the car, and my 3/4 upshift is climbing that hill. We put the 389 in the car, and my 3/4 upshift is under the starter stand, which is about a half to 60% of the way down the straight.
Oh, wow. Just a slight change in gearing.
Oh, just huge. But the other fun thing was in turn 5, they had a speed gun that showed the speed on a readout on top of the scoreboard there. So I told my daughter to watch from turn 5 and tell me how fast I was going. I had no idea, really, how fast I'm going in this car. And by the end of the race, I was coming into turn 5, in the wet, mind you, at 100 miles an hour.
Oh. That's a little interesting.
And later I found there was another gun, and they had recorded the speeds going through Kettle Bottoms, which is the part that runs from the carousel to Canada Corner. And the gun caught me at 103 there.
Nice.
And I said, 103, to me that's just fine. There are guys who want to go 160. Knock yourself out. I don't care. But my favorite moment in the whole runoff race was I caught a fellow named Bob Eichelberger, who is a pretty good racer and much faster than I am. But I caught him on the next to last lap going into Canada Corner and beat him out of the corner. Got on the inside, made the pass, nice and clean, and I'm coming out of the corner. Of course, as soon as we're climbing the hill out of the corner, he just puts in the power, drives right by me again. I think at that point he figured, I better pedal it a little bit harder because I don't want Rocky to catch me again.
Yeah.
But it was just so nice to be able to compete with that guy who is a good driver with a decent car and be able to pull off a pass on him that was nice and clean and proper and everything worked right. And he really didn't screw up other than maybe he braked a little earlier than he should have. He probably didn't realize he needed to with me coming up behind him. But it was just fun to do that. And, so that was part of it. The other good memory I have from that race is very early in the race when the track was at its wettest. The rain had quit, but it was still wet, and I went out on rain tires. I got another story to tell you about that one, too.
Okay.
But, I'm coming into the carousel, and there's this fella in a yellow Sprite up in front of me, and I come in, I notice we're just about going around the same speed, but he's doing the racer line around the 180-degree turn. The racer line is you hang on the outside and you clip the apex on the far side. I'm doing the autocrosser line, which, Gene Kinsler and Jim McCamey taught me years ago. Hug the inside all the way through.
Yeah.
And I'm staying right with him, and I'm thinking, car feels good. Let's see if I can push a little more gas pedal down. Still sticking. And I just go driving by this guy. Well, we get out on Kettle Bottoms, he drives right back by me again. But the next time into carousel, we're right together again, and I say, I know what this car will do now. And this time I beat him out of the carousel by more. And that was almost to Canada before he caught me. The next time, I was past Canada before he caught me. The next time, and I just kept backing it up until I finally got to the point where he didn't catch me on the front straight. And once I got to turn 1, I said, okay, it's mine. Because I could do the corners better.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was it. That was the fun for me. I was doing the corners. I really didn't care how fast down that straightaway I was going if I could do the corners better than the other guy. And that's what's fun to me about autocross, that you get corner, and that's the real challenge.
Do you credit autocrossing so much to helping you on the track?
Absolutely. I do things autocrossing that I carry over to racing that racers don't do. My home track is Heartland Park. They've got a carousel too. I've done that same thing of beating guys around the carousel. My favorite memory is the day that the Corvette passed me, like a GT1 car, just going into the carousel, and he's taking the racer line on the outside, and I'm on the inside. And at that point, fella, I don't care how much power you have. This is now a traction contest, and I can stick to this thing as good as you can, and I'm driving less distance.
Yep.
So when we got to the outside edge, when he wanted to go for the apex, I was in his way. Now, granted, as soon as we got to that straightaway, kaboom, he was gone, and I never saw him again. But the same thing. The corners were it, and I was able to essentially beat a Corvette around the carousel turn in the cornering. No way I'm going to beat that guy. Guy's going to lap me twice in the race, but but that's what's fun to me.
So what are some of the autocross tips and thoughts you've heard over the years, like the top things that you would tell somebody just beginning to focus on?
Just beginning, well, one thing I do here in Salina is I usually lead the novice walk. And there's two things that I push on them before we even start the walk. The first is look ahead. You know, find that next thing you do, and don't be looking at the cone right in front of the nose of your car. Look at the one that's, you know, halfway down to the next corner from you. And the other one is late apex. You know, I preach late apex like crazy. You know, and I tell them it's the safe way through a corner, it's the fast way through a corner 90% of the time, and the safe way 100% of the time. And I think they like the idea of the safe way because they're pointed down the next straight. They're not pointed off into the boonies. And
so, you physically show them, or can you tell us on audio, like radio only, podcast wise? Can you tell us what that is? It took me years to truly understand what late apexing was.
Okay, yeah, I do. I usually find a couple of cones that are lined up right there at the start, you know, and all they're doing is the marking the start. And so I act like that's a slalom. I said, so here's where I am in the slalom. When I go by this cone, I am here. And I am at that point about, 60% of the way around the cone, and then I get behind the next slalom and I'm here. And I physically show them just by the positioning of my feet where I want the car to be if that was a slalom. And then we go out on the full-size course and I do the same thing. It says when I come by this cone, I want the car here, not over here, which would be an early apex. If you do the early apex here in a slalom, when you get to the cone number 2, you're going to be early apex on that, and you're going to be behind the slalom. While if you do it late, you're ahead of the slalom all the way through. And I tell them this, and I carry it through to a lot of other things. And I tell them that the early apex cone is very rare. Usually it happens in a thing where you got 2 cones to go by, and they're both left turns. The first one is usually an early apex. The second one is a late apex.
Oh, good point. If they're spread out enough in a turn that no matter what you do, it needs to be early.
And really, you're not even, I told them, you're not even hardly paying attention to the first one being an early apex, because by that time, you're looking ahead. You're already looking at that second one up there, the exit cone. That's the one you want to focus on. And so, it came in right next to the first cone. The mate came in a foot out or 2 feet out from the first cone. Doesn't matter a whole lot if they got their focus on that second one to hit that nice tight late apex.
Yeah, yep. And that's where, what is the saying John Ames says? He who late apexes earliest wins.
Yeah, late apex as early as possible. Because really the logic of what John says on that, you can do a killer late apex that'll send you right down the middle of the next straightaway. But really, you don't want to be down the middle of the next straightaway. Yeah. You want to be at the edge where you've used up all your turning and stuff just as you get there. That's what John means by late apex as early as possible. So if you shoot that late apex and you find you're down the middle of the straightaway, back it up a little bit next time you go around it.
Yeah. And that's where I like to tell people when I'm walking the course or doing course walks with them, I'm like, the side of your car can be parallel or you not turned early enough, so your car's still pointing the wrong direction as you go by this cone, or it's pointing all the way so much on the back side of the cone or late apexing that you've already turned your wheel the other direction.
Yeah.
I just don't. It took me so many years to understand this. I think somebody drew it out in a course. We were in a class, some advanced class we had here locally, and once they finally drew it, maybe it was John Ames or somebody talking. I was like, oh, that's what you guys mean. I've been hearing this forever, and it did not sink in. I did not know what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, I never quite thought of it that way, but as soon as John said it, I knew exactly what he meant. Because the ideal is you want to come out of that course, out of that corner, full tilt boogie that carries you right to the edge of the track, but no farther.
Yeah, as far as you can go without. I remember one of the rules he told me was never go extra distance for extra speed.
And so say that one again.
Never go extra distance for extra speed.
Yeah.
Which I go back and forth on. I know that I can be really fast, tight, and tidy, but in what you just described on the exit, over the past, 4 or 5 years, I finally have taken more distance on exits, whereas in the past I wouldn't do that because I thought it was adding distance.
That almost sounds to me like the McCamey rule for 180-degree corners.
Yes. Yep.
It's funny. I took the McCamey Phase 1. It's the evolution school now. But I did it, and I had Jim McCamey, Steve Tamanley, and Gene Kinser as instructors. That's a mighty powerful bunch of people. And the funny thing was, Jean had just had this bad traffic accident where she broke both of her legs. She's sitting out there in a wheelchair with both of her legs sticking straight out, wheeling up to me and saying, "You're doing that corner wrong." And she was exactly right, because I was doing coming out and clip the backside, and she says, "Hug that inside all the way around." And I did it, and it worked, and I've used it ever since. And actually, the rule I finally got from her was, if it's more than 90 degrees, hug the inside. If it's less than 90 degrees or less, you do the outside to inside to outside. But still, you want to late apex it as early as possible.
Let's repeat these again. So if it's more than 90 degrees.
More than 90 degrees, whether you're looking at a 120-degree corner or a 180-degree corner or more, if it's more than 90 degrees, get to the inside and hug the inside all the way around. Do the shortest distance. Because at that point, like I say, it's a traction contest. It's not a horsepower contest. And if you're just hanging on to that corner as tight as you can, you're not going to change it a whole lot by moving it 2 feet or 4 feet out. But, if it's less than 90 degrees, then you're doing that old Mark Donahue classic, outside the inside to outside, and you're trying to keep your speed up. Speed maintenance, which we little cars love to do, as much as possible.
So is this, let me see how I phrase this. If I'm thinking about a road course, that's where I would go from trying to make those turns smoother, I guess. So I'm going from the very inside to the outside, or the outside of the turn to the inside of the turn, back out to the outside.
Right. If you're 90 degrees or less, that's the turn you want.
Okay. That's neat, because Bob Tennell had mentioned, he goes, anything over 120 degrees, always be tight. He goes, I think there's been 2 times in my whole career that being tight on a 120 would not pay off. You're always going to find that exception out there. No rule is so ironclad. But you're right. I mean, somewhere between that 90 and 120 is kind of a no man's land, and you kind of have to look at the turn and know what's happening here, what's coming before that turn, what's coming after that turn. And there are turns. I remember I road racing up at Aspen, Colorado, little dinky track up there. They had this chicane that was a full 90-degree left and then a full 90-degree right. And you really wanted to late apex that first one to get all the way to the left so you didn't come out to the right edge of the road, because the 90 right came up so quickly that if you were clear out to the right edge, now you're doing that little, I got to damn near stop the car to get around this corner. So
on that one, you give up the first one in order to make the second one.
Yeah, and that reminds me, again, something else John Ames said. The tightest turn on the course was most important, and the turn before the longest straight, or the fastest section. And that sounds like something you described. If the second one leads to something faster, you want to set up to maximize the second one.
Yeah, well, Alan Johnson's old book, Driving in Competition, says the same thing. 3 types of turns, and to him, the type 1 turn is the turn leading on to the straight, and the most important one is the one leading on to the longest straight.
Good
and
point.
he points out in there that if you do that outside the inside to outside, if you do that right, you can get on the gas, say maybe 10, 15, 20 feet sooner than the guy who does it early apex or shortens it up. And that 10 to 15 feet sooner becomes 10 miles an hour faster at the other end of that straightaway. And that's why you beat the guy at the other end of the straightaway.
Yeah. And that's why you need to remember to use your brakes, which sometimes
and sometimes for that one, you actually end up, it depends on what you're doing. Are you just getting around that next turn at the end of the straightaway? Well, then you kind of get up and you drive the corner the way you want to. Are you trying to beat someone into that end of the turn? That's when you take the lousy, bad, late apex, because when you both come around it, you're in the way. And that's how you beat the other guy. I mean, you'll take the bad line because it puts you in front of them.
Yeah.
But you've seen it, although, I mean, just watching races on television, I've seen it happen where one guy dives inside and he gets the other guy, and as soon as they come out of the corner, the other guy drives right back by the first guy. You seen that happen?
Yep.
Watching a race? What's happened is that the other guy didn't get seriously slowed down. He didn't have to, because the guy diving inside the turn then went to the outside, and he was doing all he could do to gather his car up, while the other guy was able to get on the gas earlier.
Yep.
So there's this trade-off in there, If I can manage to do it so we're both going around the corner side by side, I can probably beat him out of it. But if I get by him just before the corner, he might be able to power out of it, where I'm still trying to get myself not driving into the fence.
Good point.
So, and that's what happens on situations like that, and it's fun to watch. But it really proves that anytime you come up with a rule that's not ironclad, because I can drive turn 5 the same way 7 times around. The 8th time I get there, something will be different, which might be the other competitor.
Yeah, no kidding.
Autocross, you can be much more consistent that way because there's no other competitor there. If something's different, it's usually something like it rain, or now the marbles are all over the place, and so stuff like that.
Yeah, that's where the tight line, especially at nationals, if you're running later in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Usually only the tight line is clean.
Exactly. Or only one line is clean, even if it's not the line you want.
Yep.
I did that once at nationals. We had a long break between heats for some reason, and there was a corner. I really wanted to drive this one certain way. I wanted to get outside and get this corner, but the outside was covered with marbles. I went and took a broom and ran out there and swept it.
Yeah.
So I could get the line through that corner I wanted. I'm not sure how much I helped other people, because by about the third runs, the marbles were all back again.
Hey, you tried.
Oh, yeah. But it was fun.
So you mentioned driving lots of different cars. Would you suggest people do that to improve their driving?
I would. If you're in a situation where it's easy to borrow a car, or where, like I didn't have a car to drive, absolutely do it. Stock class cars, even though I'm in a prepared car most of the time. Nowadays, by the way, I'm driving an E Street Miata, so because I still got to fix the Spitfire. But stock class cars will show you stuff just as much as prepared and modified cars will, because what they're showing you is different stuff. And you go out with this attitude of, what does this car have to give me in the way of advantage, or what is it going to impose on me in the way of disadvantage? How do I minimize that or maximize it? And it becomes a real challenge to find those aspects of a different car. I know when I was doing my thing, I mean, I drove the guy's Taurus, I drove a Mustang, I drove a Corvette, I drove a Subaru, I drove somebody's front-wheel drive car, I drove a Miata, you know, front wheel, rear wheel, all kinds of different stuff. And the whole idea was to find out, what do all these different cars feel like? And I think I was better prepared to do that as a driver with a bit of experience than I would have been as a rookie, as a novice. You know, as a novice, you're better off, learn a car, I think, and get to where you can get it around the course, and it should take you maybe a season to do that. But after that, if you want to start experimenting, that's a great way to do it.
And what I think I'm realizing hearing this is you're really working on your feel instead of just being in something you think you're very familiar with or you are very familiar with. You now have to question yourself, what is the car doing, and try to experiment with different things while you're taking these runs in the car.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think what I found myself doing with the Spitfire was, I know this car. I've been driving it for years, and I go out and drive it the same way. Well, and probably a mistake I've made is as I made a change to it or as I improved something to it. And I must say I don't have very much of a seat-of-the-pants feel for a car, but as I would change it, I wouldn't really appreciate the change, and I wouldn't use the change as much as I could have. Jumping in these other cars got me to feel the car much more, and so when I jumped back on my own, again, it was like jumping in a new car, but now I was looking for more, what can this car give me? And I think I'm a better driver for it, for having done that. Because it's not just your car that can change. It's also, you get more attuned to what course conditions can do. Are we a hot track today? Is it 90 degrees out? Is it 60 degrees out? No, is it slippery? Is it loose? Are the tires grabbing? And if you drive the same car all the time, you say, okay, I'm at the same car, I'm at the same course, I drive it the same old way. Well, last time you might have driven that corner at 60 degrees temperature, and you find you hooked up pretty well. This time you try it the same way, and suddenly your back end's slipping out. What's going on here?
Yeah.
So I think driving the different cars helped me a lot in that respect. And I know I came away from it with a real great respect for the people who can just jump in a car and go well.
Yeah, I've been like that for a while, thinking, I don't get in rear-wheel drive cars very often, so I've done 2 events in a row. I'm like, this is kind of fun. It's different, and okay. But I just don't have the confidence. But like you're saying, with a little bit of practice, you're picking up new skills that you can take
exactly
back to your car.
And then if you get to say, this thing that I just did that I could have done better, or even this thing that I can't believe I just got away with, was possible only because I was suddenly in a rear-wheel drive car, and if I'd done it that way in my front-wheel drive, it wouldn't have worked at all. But then you know that the front-wheel drive will do this, the rear-wheel drive will do that, and you get to appreciate both. So not only does it help you if you have to jump into someone else's car, it also helps you, what that guy is doing out there gives him this. What I need to do out there to achieve the same thing is do that.
Okay.
So you become the philosopher behind the wheel, I guess.
Be like, am I really seeing what's going on? That reminds me again, John Ames said, in this class, you should be watching yourself in your car move over the pavement. Like, extract yourself from what you're doing. And at that point, I started calling him Yoda. I'm like, he's like Yoda. Like, can you extract yourself and literally do that?
Yeah.
Just take yourself to that level.
That's also partially why I love to send newbies out with an experienced person to work corners. And you're really new at this game, I'll find you the busiest corner I can find. Not necessarily for cone hits, but because the people driving through that corner have to do a lot of stuff. And I tell you, watch them. Watch how fast a guy comes out when he comes in the corner here. Watch how fast he comes out when he comes in the corner over here. And I think it helps them, see the difference and what they want to do when it comes their turn to go drive it. I love working with newbies.
Yeah, and that's where I tell people I learned a lot by watching. I didn't ride with a lot of people, but I would literally watch the fast guys and go, oh, they're doing something different, like the tight lines.
Yeah.
Oh, look, they're so much faster. They look slower, but they're actually faster by a lot.
There's a fellow down in Wichita, a friend of mine, Jim French, that we used to call him Dr. Smooth, because he would drive through a course, and he's the most boring guy in the world to watch go through an autocross course. There is never any excitement, but Danny's quick. I mean, his car is just always under control. He's always putting it in the right place. Seldom hits a cone. And it's really a lesson to teach people that that wild-ass, tail-happy run you just did looks spectacular as hell. It's also about 3 or 5 seconds slower than the guy who's boring. Because what he's doing, he's controlling his car better than you are. And that's his secret. It's all about car control.
Very good point.
It's all about car control.
That's where I used to think I was smooth. I was on Hoosiers and the Integra and D-Stock. And then I get the street tires, and for some reason I'm convinced, actually, not for some reason, I got somebody in my car at the test course there at Nationals, and he's jerking the wheel. And I'm thinking, why did I ask him to drive my car? This is ridiculous. And then I realized the car was working with him jerking the wheel on those Toyos. I was like, do I really have to throw out being smooth? And I started noticing in some videos of Civic drivers, in big sweepers, they would move the steering wheel 3 or 4 inches, like trying to find the grip.
Oh.
So I almost reversed some of my smoothness thinking, wow, maybe I'm never getting to the maximum grip at times because these street tires have some squirm to them. So I would still say smooth is what I want to be, but in street tire land, it's been weird on those Toyos, at least back a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, I think, smooth is always kind of the ultimate that you go for, but you're absolutely right. You can get to make a run, and you'll suddenly do something that felt like I did it wrong, but it worked. Do it again.
Yeah.
If you didn't end up bogging down, exiting the corner, then maybe you should keep using that, at least in that corner.
No kidding. And that's anymore. I need to get back to this habit, I think, when I finish a run to stop before I talk to anybody and go, what do I want to change for the next run? I used to be so good at that. I'd stop, say, oh, those 2 things surprised me. And that's all I would focus on for the next run. That was it, period.
I do the same. I come in off a run and, okay, what did I screw up there? How can I improve it? And sometimes it baffles me because, see, that felt like a good run, but it was a half second slower. Why? And most of the time, if I'm asking myself that question, the answer was I was trying too damn hard to be smooth, because you can overdo it and slow yourself down.
Yeah, very good point. That 95% are trying to just like back off the cones can add so much time. There's a ton of time there as soon as you say, I'm going to take this a little bit easier. I don't think I've ever done that and been successful at all.
Yeah. It's a hard sport in that regard, and I think that's one reason why we find it fun. There's that constant challenge.
You're like, how can I advance? What other stories do you have? What other thoughts do you have for people that are getting into autocross, have been doing it for quite a while?
Oh, let's see. Getting into it, other than the early technique things, which, like I say, I take them around on my novice walk, and I tell them about the late apex, and I tell them about look ahead, and I don't get to too much else. But I tell them, it says, you can sit out here, and people will tell you 10, 12 different things to do, and if you find a couple that make sense to you, and the other ones can't quite figure it out, forget about it. Do the ones that make sense. The other ones, the light bulb will come on at some time when you're ready for it. But don't stress yourself thinking, I've got to do this particular thing this particular way, because you probably won't anyway, but you'll figure it out. And it takes time. It's a steep learning curve, and not to be discouraged by that steep learning curve.
Yeah, that's a great point. That once again, you can try to put too many things in your head, and then essentially you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
You're too confused to do anything properly. Like you're not even looking ahead.
My brother, who's an airline pilot, has likened similar type training to trying to drink from a fire hose. You know, you just can't do it. It's too much there.
Yeah.
But
what got you hooked? What got you hooked into autocross?
Hooked into autocross. My brother Buck. This is actually a bit of a story. I had gone to Europe in '65, spent the summer just bumming around the continent, and the flight I was on arrived home in New York City 2 weeks before I had to be back at college at Kansas University. My brother lived in New York City, so I just said, I'm going to visit you for a couple of weeks. He said, okay, we're going to a Gymkhana this weekend. What's that? So he took me. He drove his MGA. I watched. He took me to another one. He drove his MGA. I watched. And come to the third weekend, which I had to leave Sunday night or Monday, and I said, Buck, do you think you'd let me take a chance driving your car? He said, well, you won't beat anybody, but sure, go ahead. And it was an event that his own club was setting up. If you'd have set up that course today, it would be a solo trials at least, if not a solo one. And it was a fast course. In the MGA, Buck found fourth gear. I got deep in the third. But I came home from that. Oh, wow. And I went around and I found the Spitfire at Competition Sports Cars in Lawrence and bought that sucker and had it ever since. I've been doing this game ever since. It was my daily driver up until about 71, and it had a bad habit of breaking down every October. So after about the third time it did that, I took it to Buck, who by now had moved to Lawrence and was running his own repair shop. I said, Buck, turn this sucker into a race car, race it for a couple of years, and I'll come take it back. He raced it for 3 years. I bought a Pinto and autocrossed that. That's what I drove in the first nationals at Wentzville, Missouri. Pinto and G stock. I got a funny story about that one too. But anyway, he took the Spitfire. He raced it for 3 years. He took it to the runoffs twice, and then I got it back from him. I paid him $1,500 for the work he'd done on it. I paid $1,200 when I bought it, and you know. You think of it in today's context, that's a pretty cheap price for a lot of fun.
Good point. So that's what got you into it. What has kept you coming back year after year? I imagine some of it was challenging to get back to Nationals, but you've made it.
Yeah, well, Nationals wasn't too much of a challenge to get back, but no, for most of the years you were required to do a divisional. There was no requirement that you do well in the divisional or even that you drive in the same class, just that you do it. And I always looked at that as you made a commitment to the sport. You weren't just going to be some dilettante who only shows up for the big event.
Yeah.
And so I like that aspect. And that was always involved enough. I'd always make a divisional that I could qualify for nationals. The first year I went, actually, I was thinking about going, and as you know, I wrote for Sports Car for many years, still do. And I at that point, I had been writing for Sports Car for a couple of years, and I'm out here in Kansas, and the Nationals are in Missouri, and the editor calls me up and says, would you be inclined to go down to Missouri and write up the Nationals for me? I said, oh, yeah, I'll do that, you know, and even pay my own entry fee. But that wasn't hard. And then I wanted to do the one in Chicago. Then I was the chairman for the one here in Salina. And at that point, no, I couldn't stop going. But always did that. And but I think the truth of why I stay in the game, as much as I enjoy driving the car and as much as I enjoy, you know, bashing cones, what you've heard so many times is very true. You come for the cars, you stay for the people.
like a social aspect of community.
It is. I sometimes explain it to people. I say, I live in a town of 40,000 people. I belong to a club of, now it's about 55,000 or 65,000, I think. But this club is as complex as a city. We have, people in charge. We have people on committees. We have rules of how to do things. It's the same for the town you live in. You have a city commission. You have a mayor. You have, statutes and laws. You have cops. All of this is necessary. One thing SCCA doesn't have much of is a water department, but at the same time, we have an autocross department, a rally department, a solo department. So you've got this setup that's so much like a municipality. And you're going to have just as many people, 60,000 people. You're going to have your great people in there. You're going to have a few criminals in there too, probably. And I can even name a few for you, but I won't. But it's that type of thing. And you can find your social circle within that community. And really, this is my social circle. I don't have, it's funny enough, I don't have really that many friends here in Salina, Kansas. And the ones I do have are mostly autocrossers. But I've got friends all over the country. It amazed me. I got on Facebook about a year and a half ago, which I'd fought it for years. I just didn't want to mess with that stuff. And I finally got a reason to do it. And so I'm on it for about a half a year. My birthday rolls around, and here come about 80 or 90 birthday wishes. Oh, my God. And these are the people who I think at some level like me. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And I realize this is my SCCA community. Whether the guy is living in Salina, Kansas, or New England someplace, or in California, and I've got friends all over the country. And it's a beautiful thing that really keeps me into this club. My wife will tell you about one time one of her son, my stepson, got stranded in the middle of Iowa. What can we do to get him some help? She pulls out the SCCA list and calls somebody in Des Moines Valley region who just took care of it.
Yeah.
And that's what this club does. It's a great bunch of people to be friends with.
That reminds me whenever I loaned my truck out last year because a fellow autocrosser's truck broke down. It's like, yeah, you can take it to Arizona. That's fine.
Yeah. I say, my God. Here's this. I'm going to tell you one other story that I dearly love my memories from doing the runoffs at Road America. I show up to the grid for my race Sunday morning. Our first race out Sunday morning. I had happily picked a paddock spot that was just right at the head of the grid road. So I roll into grid Sunday morning, and it's wet out there, but it's quit raining, and we think it's a drying track. My crew guy, he thinks it'll dry off. He sends me to the grid on slicks. And I'm dead last on grid, by the way. I finished 11th, but I started 20th. I get out to the grid, and sitting in his golf cart at my grid spot is Kent Prather, who the day before had just won his 7th national championship. I think he's got 8 now. Why a 7-time national champion is sitting waiting in my grid spot, because I'm just Pokey Joe, sitting out here at the back end. But he was there. But he looks at me in my car, and he said, you get back to your paddock and you put your rain tires on right now. And I did. I took that. Kent's a guy I respect incredibly. His son Jesse is the guy who was working on my car to get it ready for runoffs. I had an absolutely trouble-free week because of what Jesse did for me. But Kent gives me that. I start up, and I go drive back to the grid and get back to my grid spot, stop the car, jump out, go get the tires, go get my tools. And by the time I'm walking back to the car with my tools, here comes Kent and his pit crew. And he say, you get back in the car and buckle up. We'll take care of this. I had this wonderful NASCAR moment. Left side goes up, Okay, chunk, right side goes up, chunk, back behind the helmet, go back out there, and I got back to the grid just as it was leaving.
Just in time. Just
in time. And I tell you, that rain tire setup was exactly the right thing to do. I'm sure that is why I finished 11th and I started 20th. But, to have somebody as highly respected as a Kent Prather, I mean, I know we're friends. I know he knows who I am, and we talk in the paddock all the time. He's a Midwest guy. But, to have him come down to see me off on that race when he ought to be basking in his new championship, but he wasn't that kind of guy, I think he enjoys his championships, but he doesn't, crow over them as if that makes him somebody, so much better than you. He's just a regular Joe, but he knows what he's talking about. So when he says something, I listen.
Yeah. So you mentioned your wife. What did she think about autocross when you got into this, and at what point did she accept that, hey, you autocross and you're going to keep autocrossing?
Well, I have to go back to when we were dating, and really it's about the first or second date we're on, and of course I'm telling her about all my exploits autocross in the car, and I've got this car. The car was a 10.5 to 1 engine at the time, and I couldn't afford at that time to do much to it. So I'm telling her about all this. I say, I could go faster, I suppose, but I just can't, haven't been able to afford it. And she just looks at me and says, you just need to put more money in your car. And I said, oh, really? I says, I got to keep this girl. I mean, nowadays she tells me I'm spending too much on racing. She doesn't mind me fixing the car up, but she says it breaks too much, which when they're talking about a 50-year-old British sports car, yeah, I can see your point. But back then it was, only a 30-year-old British sports car. So, but she did that, and I've offered her a chance to get in the car, and she says she won't do it because I can't move the seat. She needs to move the seat forward, and my seat doesn't move. So that's her excuse why she doesn't autocross.
Let's get some rails in there. Let's see if that's really the excuse.
Well, she drove one event that I know of. One time for Nationals, we had a press event where Pontiac provided us a couple of cars to use. And we set them up. We put some good tires on them. And we sent all the press people out to run around a special course. And we got her in the car, and she drove that thing. And she was about halfway up and down the, if we had 30 press, she finished about 15th. So I've always thought she could do it. She's fairly decent, although she still does things like turn the steering wheel with a hand inside the wheel. And I tell her about that, and she tells me to shut up. Or she'd drive down the street with one hand on the gear shift, both hands on the wheel. Oh, shut up. But at the same time, she's been very involved in the club. She was our chief registrar many years. She was membership chair for many years. Now I am. She was even the newsletter editor for a few years. That's what I do now. But she did that, and she won Best Small Region Newsletter like 4 times in a row. And I think what most pissed her off is when they combine newsletter and website into one contest.
Oh.
And which brings up something that the both of us have it's really been a mild sore point of all the regions who think we've got a website, we don't need a newsletter anymore.
And with social media, you need to push everything out everywhere.
And I said, the thing about social media, a website or whatever, is newsletters and websites are exactly opposite from each other. A newsletter, you stick it in someone's hand and say, read me. A website, you just post it up on the board and say, if you happen to find me, you've got to go look for a website. The newsletter you can stuff in your mailbox, and it sort of commands them to take a look. Yep. And it's two different ways of approaching people, and I think in this day and age, you need both ways. You need the people who man, they're going to hunt the websites all around. They're surfing the net all the time. And you have people who they only get on the computer when they need to. But if you stick a newsletter in their hand, oh yeah, what's this about?
That's a good point. I'm into the online marketing and such, but I try to avoid a lot of things because of the time sinks. But when a magazine shows up here, I usually at least read through it very quickly. Yeah. Oh, what's in here? What can I learn? What can I see?
Exactly. You know, and they approach two completely different audiences. And if you only use one method or the other, you're only reaching one of those two audiences.
Yeah.
And I know
you're missing out on something. At the very least, take that newsletter and send it as an email to somebody. Because even an email, once again, people...
And I do. I make a PDF of it, and I send it to my webmaster, and he puts it on the website. So it's there for the people I didn't know about who might come across it. But the people I do know about, I talk to somebody, and he says, "Oh, that sounds like a fun. Give me your address. I'll send you a newsletter."
Yeah.
And I'll send them 3 copies. If we don't see them by then, well, okay. But often enough, the guy shows up for something, and then you got him. That's the whole point, you know. Bait the hook and reel them in. We don't know. Flying the region, we don't. For years, we never charge extra for non-members at our events. You know, we always figured, let's get them in, let's get them to enjoy it, and get them to be a member, rather than let's take his pocket for an extra $5. When they went to weekend memberships, now we got to pick his pocket for $5, but that's all. No, SCCA recommends charge $15 for a weekend membership. We charge $5. That we send that to SCCA. We don't make anything off of weekend memberships, but we hope by presenting him with something that he will find enjoyable to make something off of a full membership.
Yeah.
To get his involvement, get him to be part of our club.
Yep, you're thinking long term, just like I would
say most
people in business should.
Very much so. No, we're a little small region, so we gotta reach out and grab people, not just tap the pocket of whoever happens to show up today. You know,
and how many people do you have in your local region? What kind of turnout do you get?
We have, I think we've got roughly about 85 members now. SCCA thinks we're about 65 because they only count people who sign up through SCCA.
Yep.
You know, if you're a member of Colorado region, but you also have a membership in Continental Divide, which I know a lot of people up there do, if you join Continental Divide just by paying them their dues, SCCA doesn't know about it, and all they do is charge you with Colorado. But if you pay your Continental Divide membership through SCCA, which is possible, then when you call up your list, you're shown as a member of both, and both of them will count you as their technical member. So, and we have a pretty strong associate membership, base here. So we have a lot of those guys who are members of Wichita region, Nebraska region, some even Kansas and Kansas City, who are also members of ours. But there's only about 4 of them who join through SCCA.
Huh.
So that's why SCCA thinks we have 65 people, and I know we have 85. Or thereabouts.
Yeah. Oh, and you mentioned Evo School. You posted that on our local board here. What are your thoughts on schools?
If you got $250 to spend on your car this year, and that's all you can spend, especially if you're a newbie, don't buy the shocks, don't buy the trick tires, buy the school. Next year, when you have that same $250, and go ahead and buy the shocks or the tires, because you'll now know what you can do with them.
Yeah, good point. Work on yourself first, because we realize very quickly the driver has the most to improve.
Tighten the nut behind the wheel before you worry about the other stuff.
Well, the lug nuts, go ahead and tighten those. I haven't lost a tire, but come really close. Tighten your lug nuts and then check them again.
I've never lost a tire, but the closest I came to was I got to go back to my wife. She's looking at my tire those lug nuts don't look right. Yeah, it turns out I just spun them on and I'd forgotten to even put a wrench on them. I got distracted or something. And if she hadn't done that, I probably would have lost the wheel.
Oh.
But most of the time, I am absolutely manic. If I tighten the nuts, I don't care who interrupts me. I'm going to grab the torque wrench first and finish that before I do whatever it is you want me to do.
Yes.
That's pretty important part right there.
Yes. Tighten your lug nuts. Make sure there's at least some air pressure in the tires. Helmet on. Go.
Exactly.
Rocky, where can people reach out to you? We'll put this in the show notes. So where would you like people to know what you're doing? I will do a intro to the show, so I'll talk about quite a few things about you personally,
okay,
as well as your website.
I probably should use the occasion to flog my one product that I sell, which is my Solo Stats book, which is the statistical record of the Solo Nationals from day one. If you've ever driven Nationals, even if only once, you're in the book.
And let me tell people, this has been so helpful. I was trying to look up for these interviews. Oh, how many championships, how many trophies do people have? And luckily somebody said, hey, Rocky has that. Just contact him.
Exactly,
so you send me the
I do.
PDF.
And when I sell a book to someone, I always include an extra thing called your personal record. And I go through and find every place in the book that you're mentioned, whether it was you won these championships or you were part of the entry when we hit 1,200. If you've done that, I've got that in your personal record. And but as I say, you can look up anybody who's ever driven Nationals and know exactly what they've done, what their record is, what class they drove in, where they finished. And it's a fun thing. It's not putting the groceries on the table or anything else like that. I sell maybe a couple dozen a year. But SCCA always buys about 3 or 4 of them for their use. People like you and people who are in the press will sometimes buy one. Sometimes they do it every 2 or 3 years, or sometimes every 10 years, whatever. I don't care. I started doing that. I started keeping these because I'm the guy in charge of covering it for Sports Car, and I needed to know this year what the guy had done last year, and it built from there. Roger Johnson found out I was doing this and said, "Hey, can I get a copy?" And back then I was just doing a printout. So, okay, Roger, here's a printout for you. And then other people discovered I had it, and I started hanging the printout, at the party, Monday night. And then it got to the point where it was just too big. This thing is almost 400 pages now. I can't print out that much and go hang it, because back when I was hanging the printout, that's when I used a tractor feed paper. No, there is no such thing nowadays.
And that's where when you're like, I can send you the paper, I'm like, no. I don't want to search through paper, but the PDF, I just type in the name.
Well, the paper it's a book. It's a loose leaf binder right now, and 3-ring binder. But yeah, you can flip through it, and you can hold page 42 while you look up to see what matches on page 296.
Yeah. So I just want people to know you can get a printout, you can get the PDF, you can get both of them.
I can do a PDF. I can do the PDF. I can either send you an email. I can send you a disc with the PDF on it. And some people prefer one, some prefer the other. Some like both. I've had people say, "Can you do both of them for me?" And so I got a cut rate deal if you want both of them.
Yes, and I'll include your information once again in the show notes, and I'll also say it out in the introduction there for people. Hopefully we'll get some more of these sold for you. And at the very least, I'll probably keep buying them.
Very good. Yeah. I mean, the way to buy it is just someone send me an email, and the email is rocky@spitfire4.com. Spitfire 4. I drive a Spitfire. It's the number 4. That's where that comes from. And if you want to get
it simple,
if you want to get really technical about it in British car nerdyism, the first generation of the Spitfire was called the Spitfire 4 before they went to calling it Mark II and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but Spitfire4.com, my name up front, and that gets it to me. I get an email, you tell me you want the book, I make up the book, I make up your personal record, I send it to you, there's an invoice in it, you send me a check after you get the book. You know, I don't do PayPal, I don't do, you know, I have had people send me a check in advance, but I don't request that. Because I've found that SCCA people in the main are very honest, very trustworthy, and if they say they're going to send me a check, they'll send me a check.
Yeah, I didn't realize you had sent it to me before I had sent you the check. I'm like, oh, he already sent me the PDF. I already have it.
Yep, you already did. Yep, because I sent you the check because I had your address off the when I sent you the PDF.
Yeah.
But yeah, people do that. You know, I've been stiffed exactly once in all the years I've been selling this thing, which is not too bad a record.
Yeah, that also tells you how good the community is.
Yeah, it really does, you know. And being stiffed once was not enough to make me never do it again, because the rest of the community has been very good, very honest, and very faithful. I mean, every now and then I have to say, hey, it's been a month since I sent you the book. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that. And the check comes flying through. But that's just human nature.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to meeting you, hopefully this year at Nationals or sometime before. Some of those EVO schools are tempting. I've taught one, but also just getting more seat time is quite tempting.
Yeah, well, we got one coming up in a month or so. You know, and in Colorado, you're close enough.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's it. If I haven't put the flyer on it yet, I will. I think I already have put the flyer on Colorado Region website up there.
You have. I just checked it.
So I figure you're close enough. When I do the book, one of my great complaints about the way we communicate nowadays is there's too damn many ways to communicate. Back in the 80s and the 90s, you could be a member of Team.net, and there were 1,000 autocrosses on that thing. You put one message on Team.net, you reached everybody. Nowadays, you got to put it on 1,000 different forums and websites and Facebook pages in order to reach half that many.
Yeah. Yep.
But it is what it is, so we keep doing it.
No, it's been fun. Thank you for all the time, and I'll be in touch.
I enjoyed it.
Sure.
Like I say, now I know how to pronounce your name correctly, even if I think it's incorrect.
Hey, so in getting the intro for the show made, the guy who made it for me, he took German like 4 years in high school or college or something.
Oh, do you want to say Randall too?
Yes, he even though he knew, like I sent him, this is how I say my name, he couldn't do it. He twice in a row. He messed up some part of it. He goes, it's so hard for me to say it the wrong way. I'm like, I only know it the wrong way because that's just what I grew up with.
Yeah, that's what you've had all your life, you know. And I haven't. The name Entriken is a funny name. For years we thought it was German. It turns out it's Scottish. But I've always had the theory that because it is a hard name to say if you haven't heard it, and it's easily misspelled as well, I've kind of been a bug on names, so I like to try to pronounce names correctly if I've only seen them, for the first time. And so I would bet if I saw someone in Germany with your spelling of name, he'd be saying it Randall.
Exactly.
But when it comes up and everybody says Rendell, I said, is that right? That's why I had to ask you. Is this correct? It says, yeah, that's correct. Okay, it's Rendell it is then, because my other philosophy along that one is, it's your name. You can say it any damn way you want to.
And I with such a unique first name, and like you can be nice and try to say my last name, but it really doesn't matter. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but I've interviewed people, because being a journalist, I've always been taught, if you're a print journalist, spell it right. If you're a broadcast journalist, say it right. And
good point. Yep.
This is important. And so I try to do both because one leads to the other. And I've had people tell me, it says, oh, I don't care if you mispronounce my name. It says, I care. It's the most precious thing you own. So I'm going to give it the respect it deserves. And that's just me as a journalist. That's how I feel about people's names.
That's nice. Yeah. I'm in Toastmasters, and it's something I'm practicing always. I'm like, let's make sure we introduce people correctly.
Yeah. It's like one of the geeky things I do. You know, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool geek. There's no question about that. Watch a movie, and if it gets to the credits on the end, I try to recite the names on the credits as they go by, which is fun when it's a movie that half the people on it are from Bulgaria or they're from Indonesia or someplace like that. You know, but as fast as the credits go by, even at a slow theater speed, you can't keep up.
Yeah, no kidding.
If everybody's Smith, Jones, Brown, Taylor, it's easy. But when it's, Kosnowski, Bogdanovich, Mikabakaba, whoa. And you try to keep up with it. It's a hell of a practice for getting names right. I love names. They're all fun.
I would need somebody to pronounce each of them because I just don't know enough to get them correct.
Oh, you'd be surprised once you practice it for a while. Oh, yeah. And then you start learning things like, well, here's the name, Tede Alexandrova.
Oh, no kidding.
Tede Alexandrova.
Alexandrova.
Yeah. And the ova is feminine for those East European endings. Dad would have been Alexandrov.
Oh.
I learned that in a Sports Illustrated story about Sharapova, Sports Illustrated, who pointed out that her dad was Sharapov. That the ova is a feminine ending, which I didn't know until then.
Good to know. Hopefully I can remember that one. That's unique enough to know.
And so I was constantly mispronouncing East European, putting the accent on the wrong syllable. Yeah. And I'm still not sure if I get it right every time, but I try to remember. Actually, I think I was saying Sharapova, and I think it's Sharapova, not Sharapova. And Alexandrova, not Alexandrova. Which has nothing to do with autocross, except when you put out a book that's got 5,000 names in it.
Ay. Yeah, you're like, how would I pronounce this name? How do I pronounce that one?
Exactly.
So do you listen to the broadcast when they do pro solo broadcasts or tour broadcasts?
I haven't. No, I haven't done that too much. Actually, I listen to them also. I'm sitting in the paddock at Nationals, and I'm picking up. Usually, I'm picking up the feed straight from the announcers then, but I think some of that's going out over the air too.
Yeah, now I'm forgetting what it's called. The software, little app you can put on your phone, and you can listen. You can listen to people at pro solos all across the country these days, and even see little videos that seem low quality, but you can actually see what's going on.
Yeah, well, like I say, getting on this Facebook, and you're always coming up against somebody's autocross runs and stuff like that. And,
for sure. Facebook now knows I care more about the autocross friends than anything else. Like, this is all we're really going to show you now.
Yeah, it's fun. I forget what, somebody came up, and I for some reason I was led to a tape of somebody's run here at Salina, and I was able to go back, look at my back issues of the newsletter, and tell him exactly which run that was, at what event it was, because he didn't have that in his thing.
Okay.
Little things like that. It's fun being a geek.
Yeah.
So
very cool. Well, thanks for staying up so late. And
worst comes to worst, well, for me this is no big deal. I'm always up late. Drives my wife nuts, but I'm retired. I don't have to get up at 8 in the morning anymore.
Yeah, my kids will be waking me up probably before 6. That's for sure.
Yeah. So let's say, what do you drive these days, by the way? I could look it up, but
I'm probably still gonna be in the STS Civic. Although the last two winter series here, a friend has a Porsche GT3, so I jumped in that for two runs in Super Street. Talk about an easy pack.
Corvair or
no, a GT3 Porsche, a Porsche GT3.
Oh, Porsche. I thought I heard Corsa.
Oh no, Porsche. So Porsche. 2011.
Oh God, Porsche GT3.
Yeah.
You know, as much as I kind of poo-poo speed over handling, or I'd rather have handling, when you say Porsche, you've got them both.
Yeah, what's crazy is Super Street has a softer packs in every ST class. And I'm driving this thing going, how can my Civic ever do anything better than this car?
Yeah.
I just, like you're saying, the power just feels, it comes on gradual, which makes it easy for me to drive it compared to, let's say, a Z06 Vet, which I've only driven like one run. But this one is very mild-mannered. It's amazing how easy it's been. I'm like, wow, this is quite easy. I really would like to have a GT4 now. Who has one of those?
But you take it out on an autocross course, and you don't run out of revs, do you? It just keeps on winding.
Yeah, exactly. Second gear is fine.
Both your car and my car, you get along enough straight, and we'll run out of revs, and either I got to shift to third or I got to just let it bang on the rev limiter a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah, the GT3, especially, we ran a little lot this time, and then I guess the next one at PPIR a little bit bigger. So I think for sure I'm doing my car for the Pro Solos, but I may or may not drive some more with him. Literally, I usually say no to people, and I was like, but a GT3, I've always wanted one, so I should say yes. And he's enjoyed it. I even took his car into the grass, the second run in it. And he was with me, but it was nice and controlled, very straight, probably 20 miles an hour. I turned around and came back. And he seems to think I'm helping him learn. And it's just been a hoot. It's been fun, and it's been pretty tame. So.
Yeah. Well, it's a great game we play.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I'm trying to learn more by getting in different cars. I'm like, I don't ever do this, but I probably should.
Well, very good. Well, I don't know if I'll run into you anywhere else, but I'll sure run into you at Nationals. I'm not sure where I'll paddock this year. Last year I decided to go up with the Heritage Classic guys since I was driving one of their cars. We were on the back row. Usually I'm with the Chiefs group, so I'm down in the front row.
Yeah.
So.
How many runs do you guys take local? How many runs for your local events?
Typically 4 or 5. Depends on the shape of the course, which our site is long and narrow. It's an old airport runway.
Okay.
And so if the course is such that we can't send the second car out until the first one's 3/4 of the way through, then maybe it's a 4-run day or a 5-run day if it's a low entry. But if we can get that second car out just as the first one's turning around, then maybe we got a 6-run day.
Yeah.
It varies. But, yeah, we almost never have less than 4. And 6 is not uncommon.
Nice.
Yeah, Ron Williams was telling me all their events are 2-day events. So, maybe I'll come out and drive some with you guys.
Yeah. Well, the problem with Ron is he's talking Kansas region. All their events are 2-day events, but they maybe only have 3 weekends a year.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. When my car was out there until about 2 weeks ago, I go, when is your first event? Can I just come out and drive the car and then bring it home? He's like, oh, we don't have any events for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
And to me, I don't know why Kansas region does that, but, we try to get 10 or 11 weekends a year because, I'm sorry, if I can't give you an event and give you another one a month later, I think I'm going to lose you.
Yeah. No kidding. And that's why it sounds like they're so small they combine with somebody else, so.
They do. Well, all of their events, they're all at Heartland Park on the autocross pad at Heartland Park, and they're all also Kansas City region events. The Kansas City region also has 6 or 8 more out at the driving school up in Independence, and they've got one at the Cricket Amphitheater also, which is on the Kansas City, Kansas side. Huh. So Kansas City region is giving their people a 10 or 12 event season.
Nice.
South of us, Wichita gives their guys 10 or 11 events a year, and we try to do the same here.
Yeah, we do that at least.
And what happens a lot is we get a lot of crossover from Wichita guys, from Topeka guys. Nebraska even comes down because Lincoln's only 3 hours from here, and Omaha is 3.5. So it's not that unusual to have Nebraska guys here.
Yeah. Come and get some more runs.
That's it. Plus, we brag that As someone has said, we get the best concrete in Kansas.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the other key is, how much concrete can you get and handle?
Well, the stick is really good here. I can go back. A comment one guy made when I did the Nationals here in 1975. He went out and took a run. He came back and says, "My God, I could stick on this course in snow tires." And it's fun because it's sticky, but it's really not as abrasive as some.
Yeah.
No, you'll find airports that got concrete that just takes half your tire off in 3 runs.
Yeah, no kidding.
And ours really doesn't, but man, the stick is great.
That is nice. That's for PPIR for us. It's asphalt, but it will chew Hoosiers up. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. People have asked me, how does Lincoln compare? And I say Lincoln is smoother than Salinas concrete, but it's still sticky enough that you're going to have a good ride.
Yeah.
But it's funny is there's a lot of sharp points in Salina concrete if you just get down and feel it with your hand, while Lincoln's has a lot of what looks like river stones. They're smooth.
Oh, okay.
Little small pebbles in the concrete, and and they mostly look like river stones in the concrete.
What happens when they get wet?
Like anything does, it gets slippery. I mean, even our good sticky stuff, if we're running in the rain, we tell people, no, watch out for it, and the grass is close enough that you hit the grass, you're going to keep right on going no matter which way you point that wheel.
Yeah.
So the whole
for
point,
sure.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to let you go here, or you're going to let me go, or whatever.
Yeah, I should go to sleep. I luckily took a miniature nap midday, and then as soon as I asked you, I was like, "Oh, can you do it later?" And you go, "Yes." I'm like, "Oh, he does stay up late." I'm like, "I'm feeling tired already."
Yeah, well,
I usually stay up late, but
I'm generally good to the wee smalls, so. And then I wake up somewhere between noon and 2 in the afternoon.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't get to do that anymore.
Yep. I mostly wake up because I have a cat that likes to come up and lie down with me.
Yeah. Oh, let me pronounce your name. Make sure I get it right. Entriken.
Right on. That's it.
I wrote it down when you said it. I wanted to make sure for the introduction I can say that properly. So.
Accent on the front syllable.
Entriken.
Entriken. And
good.
There is no C in that name either.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The most common mispronunciation is Entriken. And I always tell people there's no trick in Entriken. Both if you're saying it and if you're spelling it. There's no trick.
Yeah, no kidding. Very cool, Rocky. Well, thanks again for everything. Thanks again for keeping track of all this stuff and for riding in sports car. I appreciate it for making all these events and being on the old farts list, which I now know means you've raced for over half your life and you're willing to spend at least an hour a year helping somebody new.
Yeah, well, that's one thing to do. I do that. Doing the novice walk out there. I figure I'm doing that, keeping that aspect of. I did mention to you that Bob Fennell flattered me. I'm not just on the list. I'm number 1. And I asked him, Bob, why did you give me number 1? He said, well, I just thought you should be there. And wow, I didn't even know him that well then. But I mean, to me, that was quite a compliment that he decided I would be of the 110 or so people on that list. That I would be the number 1 person. Wow. I mean, I'm still amazed by it today, and don't know quite that I deserve that, but. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. That's nice. I mean, Bob's a great guy, and that does.
Oh, he is. I enjoy him.
Here, he discusses his Spitfire.
So you have leaf springs in the back of the car?
The Spitfire has a transverse leaf spring going from left shock to right shock, basically.
Yeah, I'll admit I don't understand.
Yes, they are. It goes sideways across the car, not frontwards and backwards like most American shocks do.
Yeah.
But it's the top of it mounts on top of the differential, and so when you do things like disconnect the axle so they'll droop down, now the spring wants to push it down. So you have to do it with a jack underneath the hub and get it disconnected, and then slowly lower it down until it's relaxed.
Just everything has its. And you've had this car how long?
Let's see, 50 years. It's a 64. I bought it in late 65, and I still got it.
Nice. Yeah, most cars I've sold, I wish I hadn't sold.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. If I put my car in the show or something like that, someone always comes around and says, "Yeah, I used to own a fill-in-the-blank British sports car." Yeah. I wish I still had that car. And they just smile and say, "I still do."
Yeah.
You know, and I'm very happy. I just love my little old shit box. I can't help it.
Oh, I was not willing to put a shitbox sticker on the back of my Civic. I'm like, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to have it break. I don't do braking. No.
Yeah. Well, many years ago, Roger Johnson, the famous one, and this is back when the Nationals were here in Salina, he created a bunch of top 10 lists, one of which was, if he'd ever get rid of that shit box he drives, he might be fast someday, and I think I was on that list. But no, I got no complaint about it, because I could say I love a little car. It's the only car I really know how to take apart and put together. So that means something to me.
It means you can fix it.
Yeah. That's it in a nutshell. I love it when some guy in some Buick says, "Something's going wrong with my car. It makes this noise. You know what it is?" And I just, you try to be helpful, but the thought in my head is, I haven't the first clue why your Buick is not functioning the way you want it to. I don't know. All I know about it is Spitfires.
Like, hey, it's good to you're an expert.
I am. I hardly even say that. I can. If it's nuts and bolts, I can take them off and I can put them on. But when it gets to the point in the instruction where it says "and adjust to," that's when I go, Blackguard, find someone else to do it. I'm bad on adjustments.
Oh, that's where I don't adjust shocks hardly at all. That's why I got these other shocks. I'm like, I'll actually adjust the compression. Yeah, I never put them on the car.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Well, I've got these yellow conies on the car right now, and I figured out where I want the rears because they're hard to get to for the adjustment, and they just leave them there. It's this full soft seems to work. But the fronts, I crank them up to full hard for the event and crank them back down again. And, hey, it's easy. They give me this little thing, and I just go under the hood and spin it around 2 rotations, and it's done. I wish it was also easy.
It should be so easy.
Really. But we play a technical sport, however technical-minded we are or aren't.
Yeah, true. That's what some people are realizing. It's like we have a Chevy Sprint Turbo that Van Townsend's been racing, and he keeps wanting to believe in it. I thought I wanted to build that car, and it didn't take very long. I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to build it. I don't know why I put all this money into this. And literally Kevin Wenzel said, you guys realize that you're competing against people that have been working on their cars for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you guys haven't even, done much of anything. I mean, you did the basics, but you haven't done the real basics.
Well, I've run in my class. I've run against people like Randy Herrick, who won 5 of his 8 national championships in my class. And people like Wayne Snyder, who built my first really nice engines. And I've always said that there's no way you're really going to beat a guy who knows how to build his own car and then drives it well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care how good a driver I am. He's got that knowledge of he built the sucker, and he knows exactly what to tweak on it. I mean, you say tweak to me, no.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You've heard the joke about the general who goes flying with the paratroopers?
No.
And someone asks him and says, "Do you jump, General?" And he says, "No, I don't, but I like being around those who do."
Oh, that's very interesting.
And so that I think is kind of me. Is I don't know how to fix my car, but I like being around those who do. And every now and then I learn something from them.
No kidding. That helped. Well, that almost helped me at Nationals until I asked to drive a different car, not knowing the rule. I quickly learned you don't ask to drive another car until you have to at the last second, I guess.
No,
yeah, that's the other thing. You know the camaraderie better than I do, even.
Yeah. And I've driven other cars on more occasions than I want to admit. But I did something once a few years ago. I decided to repaint my car, and I just completely stripped the thing, everything off it, so it was just a shell. Took it in, and it took me actually a couple of months of I guess I'll go do something now to get it all stripped out. And by the time I got it back, it was August. Well, wow. During that period from March to August, for our events, I went out to an event and I borrowed somebody's car. Okay, that was fun. Went out to another one and I borrowed the car. I said, hey, maybe I'm onto something here. And I made it a point to borrow a different car every event. Never drive the same car twice.
Oh, that's nice.
It was such an eye-opener because you learned in one run, what does this car have to give you? What's it good at? The first one I bought was a Ford, what was it? SVO Ford, some kind.
Oh, yeah. Was it a Taurus show? No,
Taurus, yeah, it was a Taurus, SHO, that was it. And this damn thing wouldn't handle worth a damn, but man, it would launch.
Yeah, it had that Mitsubishi engine, I believe.
And I beat the owner by 3 seconds.
You did what, 3 seconds?
Yeah, I beat the owner of the car by 3 seconds that day. Oh, wow. And what I discovered was that the thing would launch, so it was okay. Get up to the corner, brake earlier, get the car pointed where you want it to go, and then stand on it. And the sucker would bite the last half of the turn really nice coming out. Wouldn't bite the front half of the turn worth a damn. But doing that, the run worked beautifully. And, I had about 4 runs that day, so it wasn't that hard. Then I got the next car I borrowed was somebody's Mustang. Totally different. Okay, don't stop it off the line, ease it off the line, because I stomped my car off the line. And you after doing this through about 8 different cars, and then I got back on my own, I really think it made me a better driver of my own car because I was much more attuned to what is the car offering me that it's good at.
Yeah. You were willing to, I guess, have the feel to know right away, probably.
Yeah, well, you had to learn it in one run, basically. And, when all you do is you drive your own car until it breaks and you jump on someone else's for that last run. It never works out that way.
Oh, good point. And that's where at that one Nationals when mine broke the first run, then I got in the other car, made the second run, his helmet was in there. Or what was it? There was 2. Every run was, my last run, I hit a cone on my second run in his car. Third run, he leaves his helmet in the passenger seat. I take off, and it hits me. And I just laugh, and I knock it to the floorboard, and I keep going. I'm like, this is crazy.
Oh yeah, well I've done that. I mean, I've driven Dwayne Dunham's Spitfire when mine broke. I've Bo Rader's Sprite, Bill Contreras' Fiat. Dunham's car. Well, they're both Spitfires, right? How different can it be? Lots. I felt so uncomfortable in that car of his. My friend here in town, Dennis Smith, also has a Spitfire. I jumped in his, and the same thing. I was so uncomfortable just because the seating arrangement was that different. On the other hand, Contreras' Fiat, big wide thing, short, mid-engine, fat tires, totally different from my car, drove very nicely. I felt very comfortable in his car.
Hey, fat tires probably always makes it a little nicer.
Oh yeah, but it's funny how jumping in different cars will show you this stuff, and it's fun. That's why it's so cool that we have a sport that someone says, "Oh, you're broke, drive mine."
Yeah, that's true. And that is so nice you can do that.
We do that just as a run. I I haven't lent my car to too many people who borrowed mine. The occasion hasn't come up. I did lend my car to Renee Dunham one time with Dwayne's wife. She broke on a run, and I just went in the paddock and got mine and brought it to the grid. It says, "Here, climb in." And the seat didn't quite fit her, but she got the run in, and that was all she wanted. But it's a great sport for that. I think that's another reason I stay in this game, is because it is that great sport. It is the place you can go and everybody's friends with everybody until you get out on the track, and then you want to kick their butt. And once they get back off the track, you're friends again.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, exactly. The defense is all mental, I say.
Indeed. Well, better let you go.
Hey, it was great.
See you down the road.
Will do.
Thanks for listening. For the show notes and contact information, please visit autocrosstalk.com. There you can also subscribe so that we can keep you up to date on new shows as they come out. Also, please leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on iTunes for the upcoming shows. You can connect to our Facebook page at facebook.com/autocrosstalk. You can share your thoughts, your insights, your questions, your suggestions there. Also, share with your friends. Hopefully you found it entertaining and motivating, and hopefully other people will as well. It's been fun, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and check back next week for the next show.